This is Dr. Chris's radio show here at WCUW. Tonight on the show, if you're not listening to this on the radio show, hopefully maybe you're catching this as a special episode of the Vampire Movie Minute podcast as well. I have author, PhD, acclaimed movie media aficionado of multiple other books for so many years. The author of The Vampire Book and The Vampire Almanac, which is technically Volume 4, he told me. We have J.Gordon Melton on the show with us. Thank you for coming on, Jay. Gordon, I've been a longtime fan of yours going back to my early childhood.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. I'm glad we were able to work out this time.
I have owned every version of The Vampire Book, by the way, at one time or another. So the three books that were called The Vampire Book, and then now I just recently got The Vampire Almanac, the complete history.
Very good. May your tribe increase.
Well, I was about to toss out Volume 3. Well, not toss it out. I mean, I was going to give it away to somebody. But I noticed Volume 3 and Volume 4, there's like a 100-page difference between the two volumes. There's I think the Vampire Almanac is, I mean, counting the index in the back, it's like 710 pages. But the Vampire Book was like over 800 pages. What's the difference in the volumes that has decreased it?
Well, with each volume, we had to do certain things from the publisher's point of view. We wanted to update those items that most were in need of updating,
Uh-huh.
but we also wanted to add new things. The ongoing drama of Buffy and Twilight were very, very important. The gaming world and Vampire the Masquerade. So we were trying to add material. Each time we also had to take material away. And that became important when translations started to appear. Translating an 800-page book is a real problem. So at one point, I think it was between 2 and 3, we got the word, you got to cut this thing way down because we've got translators waiting to pick it up as soon as we publish it. So we cut down significantly on the third edition, if I remember correctly. And then we used the third edition to start building back up to the Vampire Almanac.
So what was some of the material that got cut out of the Vampire Almanac, and why did it have to be changed from the Vampire Book to the Vampire Almanac when the publisher is the same? It's visible ink for I saw on the back of my Volume 3 and technically Volume 4.
Well, the folks at Visible Ink gave me some reasons. It had to do with some technicalities of how they published the book, and they needed to change the name somehow, and this is what they came up with. They have pretty much control over this. They actually own the copyright to the Vampire Book, which goes back to its origins with Gale Research Company way back in the 1990s. So that was part of the problem we had. We also wanted to do something very, very important. There had been a much bigger gap between the third edition and fourth edition.
12 years?
Right. And so we wanted to deal with a lot of issues that had become relevant in the new century.
Okay.
In other words, the older editions were really an attempt to do a formal encyclopedia that dealt with scholarship and that first generation of scholarship on vampires and Dracula that started in the 70s. And then I realized that we had missed stuff along the way. There were a lot of new movies that had come out. There were a lot of new novels. There were new authors doing series. And we wanted to recognize that and also expand our coverage actually of vampire scholarship. In the first edition, the idea was to get a volume for the vampire scholars to use. In this most recent edition, we wanted to actually recognize the work of vampire scholars some of whom were dying away on us. And I'm now 82. I'm one of the few that's left from that first generation.
Oh, yeah.
And so the whole new generation had come up. The leadership of different organizations had shifted, and we wanted to play to that and make that the big thing. And since we had cut down the third edition so much, we were able to build the fourth edition by adding material and updating a lot of things that needed updating.
Do you plan on doing a fifth volume?
I do. Well, let's say a fifth volume is in the plans.
Well, don't leave me out of it this time.
All right.
I sent you my book. I think I sent you in an email my book Vlada, A Dracula Tale, where we gender flip the cast of Dracula. And people have always asked me, why did you do this? What made you want to do this? I was like, nobody had done it before. So I took the entire story, all of the more major story beats of Dracula that people are familiar with, and added a couple twists, and then flipped the genders of all the characters.
Fantastic. What's happened is, you know the name John Edgar Browning?
Yes, I've heard of that, yes.
He and I have become close friends over the last years. Mm-hmm. We started a new relationship back right before the pandemic, and then since the pandemic, it's has grown. We're working on several projects. I'm gradually shifting my ongoing responsibilities to him. And if there's a next edition, he will do it. And we've already, I've introduced him to the folks at VIP Press, and they are happy that that's happening. And when they're ready to do a next edition, if I'm still around and working, so be it. We'll do it together. If not, John Edgar will pick up the project. I've been filling him in on the how-tos to do it, the issues that have to be monitored, and he's doing, I think, a fine job of picking up the pieces of my moving on maybe to another world.
I understand.
Yeah.
I thought it was really fascinating that you included a lot of independent authors in there, and that's why I was just like, hey, I wonder if I can get in on this thing. Because, like, Cecilia Tan is in here. She's from the Boston area just like me. Also, and it's in Harrison Kim and Nancy Holder. It's just funny that this got published, I think, like 2 years ago, and then this year we just lost two more people in the vampire community. We lost the author of the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, so definitely something that needs to be updated in your book.
Yeah,
I mean, and here's the thing: this got published in 2022, right?
Yes.
Okay, so L.J. Smith just passed away this year, and Nancy Kilpatrick.
Oh, Nancy did.
Yeah, she had I don't know what she died of. I'm sorry, but she passed away as well. She was the author of the Goth Bible, and she was the editor on multiple vampire stories. But yeah, they both just passed away this year. So
well, I'm part of a informal circle of writers and interest people that Marty Ricardo put together, and Nancy has been very much part of that. But Marty did not make. He usually would make notice of that.
Yeah, it just happened. So I mean, it definitely happened within the last couple months. So, and it wasn't a huge news story, unfortunately, other than Nancy, because of the fact that she's the author. Sorry, not Nancy. Other than L.J. Smith made more news than Nancy, because again, the Vampire Diaries are so popular.
Oh yeah,
as the TV show.
Stuff.
So yeah. And then of course, there's been a couple of new vampire movies that have come out as well. There's what is it called? Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person is a phenomenal movie. I think that movie is one of the best vampire movies to come out in years, especially if you have problems with mental health. That is a movie to watch.
Oh.
Obviously, Sinners came out 2 weeks ago, of course, and then of course we had the revival of Buffy the Vampire Slayer waiting in the wings to get started at some point. I don't know what they're doing with it now. It was just announced.
That one I'm monitoring.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
Sure.
They're kind of holding their breath to see what happens because Ryan Coogler, who just made the Sinners movie, is supposedly working on a revival of the X-Files. So we'll see. Obviously, it's a matter of like, okay, which one are they going to pull the trigger on first, the X-Files or Buffy the Vampire Slayer? They're both owned by Disney, but they haven't had any success in years other than Buffy in comic books, and the X-Files had a revival a few years ago, which was hit or miss. Now Disney has been successful with the Alien and the Predator franchise, so let's hope. You know what I mean? These are 4 properties that are not your typical Disney fare. And 2 have already met with pretty good success. Alien Romulus was successful. Prey was successful. Badlands is getting a lot of great hype. Alien Earth, the TV show, is getting a lot of great hype. Let's see if we can make the X-Files happen, the right way, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We'll have to wait and see. But
I go looking for new vampire movies every once in a while, and there have been a couple of good ones that have come down the pike.
Right.
Recently,
and we've lost some people from the Hammer community as well over the last couple of years, I remember.
Yes.
So that's obviously always needs to be updated because those movies were so long ago, and those people are now just as old as you are. I mean, they're definitely getting up there. Even some of the younger actresses are, in their like 60s or 70s.
Yeah, one of the things I do is keep a list of prominent people, and well, not regularly, maybe every 6 months, I will sit down and run that list through the internet and see what comes up and try to catch any obits that I missed. We're getting so much information now that things just get lost in the information flow.
Yeah, and then of course, like What We Do in the Shadows just ended, the TV show early this year. So that's also something else. There's been no new Castlevania lately other than the anime show, which is nice on Netflix, but there's no new video games. There is a new vampire game coming out late this year that I saw a preview for. It looks phenomenal. It looks incredible. But the Blade movie by Marvel has been completely canceled. I mean, God only knows what's going to happen with that going forward, other than Wesley showing up in the Deadpool movie.
Yeah, well, Wesley's had his problems.
I get that. We don't need to get into it. What the other thing is that you also included in here I thought was fascinating, and I sent a photo to her, Tracy Briley, I'm sorry, the Vampire Memories author.
Yes.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about, Tracy.
Yes.
Okay. The last name is at the tip of my tongue, but she came on my show as well, the same one you're on now. And I saw her. She was in the book, so I had to send her a picture, being like, "Hey, Tracy, Briary." I was like, "Tracy, someone else is a fan of yours. Is Tim Vigil in here?"
Don't think so.
So Tim Vigil is the comic book artist who worked on Faust, not a vampire story, but he also worked on something called Gothic Knights, and a Kickstarter of his just came out, just ended a couple months ago, called Gothic Knights Revamped, where he republishes those 2 issues that he did in the 90s with like 85 new pages added into the book.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a vampire. He's a great Gothic horror and incredibly sexualized artist. Like the artwork he draws is either grotesque horror or hyper sexualized pornographic material. So it's someone else just to add to your list that you just might want to include as well.
I'm sitting here taking notes.
There you go. And don't forget Vlada, a Dracula Tale by Ken Hunt and some guy named Chris.
Yeah.
When you're researching this, how difficult is this? Like going back to the first book, and also why did we get generic covers for the next 2 volumes, but volume 2 had Kiefer Sutherland's David on it?
I'll have to go back and ask the folks at VIP. They always surprise me with the covers.
Yeah, it's like volume 1 or 2, right? Had David on the cover. Is it just volume 2?
Volume 1 had the eyes of Christopher Lee.
That's right. Okay, that's right. Now I remember. I'm looking at it right now. And these books, by the way, for anyone interested, they're easy to find on thrift books or eBay or Amazon. They're not difficult to track down. However, the hardcovers for these are insanely. You're gonna pay out through you're going to pay out through your wallet to get the hardcovers for any of these books.
Yeah. Well, what happened with the hardcovers? That it's a very important part of the first edition. The first edition was done by Gale Research.
Okay.
Gale Research is the largest reference book publishing house in the world, and I was on a retainer for them for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gale did the first edition, and they published 5,000 hardback copies and X number of paperback copies. And the hardback copies were aimed entirely for the library market. So they published these so they'd have books that could stand library wear of what was seen to be a popular title, and that was exactly what was happening. What they didn't realize is that the vampire book had the witch's curse on it.
What's the wait? Hold on. What the witch's curse?
The witch's curse.
Okay, what's that?
Well, it's the fact that there are certain books in the library that you cannot put on the shelf. Because if you put them on the shelf, they get stolen.
Oh, okay.
And the most popular books that'll get stolen are books on witchcraft. And so these are always kept back where there's some control, or they're kept in a locked cabinet, etc. They found out that they could buy 3 copies of the paperback book, which would be cheaper than the hardback copy. They would get longer shelf life from just putting one of those out on the shelf, rather than buying a hardback copy and having the hardback copy stolen. And so only about 2,500 copies of the 5,000 hardbacks were ever sold. I don't know what happened to the others. I suspect they were remaindered, but there were, let's say, only a couple of thousand that actually got into circulation.
Okay.
In the public. And that's one of the reasons they're so hard to come by. And that was the reason there was never again attempt to put out a hardback copy.
I just emailed you, by the way, a link to my website with the information of the 2 vampire female authors that have passed away.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
And you did get my link.
You said that Nancy had passed.
Kilpatrick, right? Is that her name?
The other one.
Nancy Kilpatrick and L.J. Smith.
L.J. Smith. Okay.
Yeah, L.J. Smith, the author of the Vampire Diaries, and then the author of the Gothic Bible, as well as like dozens of other vampire-related miniseries, short stories. It was Nancy Kilpatrick.
Right.
I've got all of Nancy's books, and most of them are autographed copies.
Wow, that's fantastic. They're definitely now worth a lot of money because she's passed away. I don't know where you are exactly. I think you're in California. If you're ever here in Massachusetts,
I'm in Central Texas.
You're in Central Texas.
I'm in Waco, Texas.
Okay.
Right now.
If you're ever in the East Coast, please let me know because I would love to meet you to have you sign my copies of the Vampire book. So I'm definitely not getting rid of my copy of the Vampire book Volume 3 because there's material in that's not in the Almanac, it seems, that I need to keep.
That could very well be.
Yeah. So that's definitely to keep a hold of.
There's unique material in each edition, but
it definitely seems that way.
The 4th edition has the most unique material.
Was it a lot of cutting and pasting into the new volume, like on a computer, or did you have to literally rewrite this entire thing?
Oh no, we start from the text of the old volume with each new volume.
Okay. So you just cut and paste.
Well, sort of. I mean, we write new entries and shove them in, and we take old entries and add updates to what's going on and move from that way. So it's partly a writing of new text. With the 4th edition, we had to have at least 100 pages of fresh text, and then plus the additions, the updatings of older entries. So there was 100 pages that were totally new entries,
mm-hmm.
and then the pictures get changed. When the 1st edition came out, the publishers did not save the photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of those photographs were ones I had borrowed from people, which I had to return to. So when we got to the second edition, I had lost contact with some of those people, and things had changed. So we had to do a whole new photographic set. I think now that finally with the fourth edition, they've gotten to where they've saved a file of all the pictures, so we don't have to start from scratch with the fifth edition.
Do you have to get clearance to use all those pictures, even if they're in black and white?
Most of them, no. There were just a few we had to. Many of them were pictures I owned, pictures I made.
Okay.
Others were out of copyright pictures that
well,
we
like a picture
grabbed.
of Blade. I mean, Blade is a character owned by Disney, Marvel, as we mentioned earlier.
Right.
That picture is from the New Line Cinema film, which is Warner Brothers. So
Right.
How does that work?
Those are coming from press kits and items the studios circulate, and they're considered films, pictures that advertise the film.
Mm-hmm.
If you only have one.
Okay.
If you did 5 or 6 from one movie, you couldn't do that. You might have somebody come back at you. But as a whole, most of the film companies, there's so many books written about films, and if you got a book about one star or one director, etc., then you got to go hunting up permissions. But if you have a book about a film or a set of films, and you're only using 1 or 2 pictures from each film, that's considered publicity.
Oh, so I didn't know that. Okay, because I just published a book called The New England Comic Book Store Owners, which is about retail store owners in New England that own comic shops. And we used, most of the time, it was photographs of the front of their building. You know what I mean? Because taking pictures, now we printed pictures of the stores themselves. The problem is the comic book stores, there's a lot of boxes everywhere, and that doesn't look great in a black and white photograph. But also, some of the storefronts have pictures of Captain America, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You get what I'm saying. And it's a black and white photo, but it's in their storefront because they're promoting the comic books that they're selling. And someone's like, did you get copyright to use Captain America in your book? And I was like, no. Wait, Captain America is not in my book. An advertisement promoting Captain America comic books at a store promoting Captain America comic books in my book, which is promoting Captain America comic books, is what's in there. And someone's
that would be considered publicity.
Yes, and someone said that is where you're going to be safe because of the fact that, yes, you are making profit on this book, but you're also promoting a book that's promoting a store, that's promoting a character, it's a cycle. And they said you should be 100% fine. Nobody at Marvel and DC is going to read this, first of all. And second of all, even if they do read it, they're going to be like, this book promotes us in a positive way. And yes, I do have owners in the book that talk about Marvel and DC being like, why the hell do they have to write a story that's 38, different chapters and we got to resubscribe to, you know what I mean? People crap on Marvel and DC in the book, and that's fine. That's called freedom of speech anyway.
Yeah.
But it was disconcerting that somebody was really trying to hammer down on me that this is going to be bad. Now, I have a documentary in development right now about Bernie Wrightson. You know who that is, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And there was somebody who used to work at DC Comics, a big somebody that used to work at DC Comics. He doesn't work anymore. But he said to me, Chris, you really got to go see a lawyer about your film. I think your film is in great light, and it's a positive message, but somebody at DC and Marvel is going to come crashing down on top of you if you don't get help from a lawyer about what you're using. So, and it's a documentary. It's an education film, but a lot of that may or may not protect me.
Yeah, I would get a lawyer who knows what they're doing to look at that.
Well, the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund has taken an interest in my documentary, so we'll have to wait and see. Otherwise, I don't know anything else. It's not that I'm not sharing for legal reasons. I just don't have any information right now because they're in the middle of dealing with other things. They are lawyers. And they work in comics, and they're comic book fans, but they're also dealing with like Trump's tariffs and stuff like that, and illegal immigration and things like that. So they do work for law firms that are dealing with big problems in the country, and not just some little guy's documentary about an artist who's been dead for 5 years.
Right. Yeah. The other thing about your pictures of the front of the store, that's kind of like taking pictures as you're walking down the street. That's all open. You don't have to worry about if somebody say famous shows up in one of your pictures by happenstance, they can't sue you for not getting permission for their image.
Right, and it's
if
not
they're
defamation.
In public space.
And it's not defamation either, right? Because it's a positive story.
Well,
and that's
that would be helpful, but the main thing is that pictures you take in public spaces, you aren't expected to get permission from whoever's picture you're taking or whatever site you're taking. The newspapers would be in real trouble.
Oh yeah, I get you. When researching these books like you have, and you've done other books on kind of creatures and monsters in cinema and media, right?
No, not really. I've done 6 books on vampires.
Right, and I read that you love vampires so much that's why you did these books.
Something like that.
Okay, that's why I didn't ask that question, because I did a little research. You know, like I said, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, but before you came on the show, I was like, what? Okay, I'm not even going to ask this. Like, the reason you did these books so many years ago is you love vampires, and there wasn't books like this out. And I shared with you a book that I'm writing, which is not in comparison with yours and not even trying to be like the same kind of book. It's literally taking vampire movies from my personal collection. I went through all of my vampire films, and I sent you a list and said, you know what? I'm going to write a book about every one of the vampire movies I have on physical media. And that's literally what the plot, if you want to call it, of the research book is going to be about. It's just the vampire movies in my physical media collection, which I will add to with Sinners and, Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, and just writing essays about each one of the films and why it is I like them, what makes them so great, and what makes them so bad if they're a bad vampire movie. But I still have it in my collection. And that's all it's going to be. We're not going to get into like, oh, and Anne Rice wrote this story and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It's just going to be about the films in my vampire collection.
Yeah. Should be a very popular book.
Hopefully.
Right now, the discourse, the talking about vampire movies has grown tremendously, even in the last 2 weeks as Sinners has enjoyed such success.
Yeah, it's been a big hit, which is kind of surprising considering the box office this year has been blah.
Well, I have been trying to say somewhere along the line we've got to run out of vampire stories.
Yeah, not yet.
and I keep, finding these really new, interesting stories coming up, and I haven't done it yet. No, I got hooked on vampires back in my late teens, early 20s. I went from science fiction to horror to vampires, and once I got to vampires, I said, oh, this is fun, and started, gathering up comic books and novels, and it just kept growing and growing because I didn't throw any of them away. And so I wound up with, what was 5 years ago the largest vampire collection in the world, literally.
Of books?
Books, comic books.
Wow.
Juvenilia.
You got to send me photos of it when we post about this interview.
I'll be happy to.
That would be awesome. So you have like every issue of like Tomb of Dracula. Do you own every vampire comic book ever? Because I am amassing a massive collection of like every vampire comic book Marvel has done. Now, trying to crack down every issue of Tomb of Dracula, nearly impossible. And especially if I do not want to pay out the yin yang for the first appearance of Blade, which is high up there. I've seen graded copies go for $10,000. I don't have that, and I'll never pay that. So I'm fine with like a reproduction issue, but I have them all in trade paperback, and that's totally fine with me because my trade paperbacks are also signed by Marv Wolfman and Gene Cullen, who has passed away, but Marv Wolfman is still with us.
I got to know both of them. When I lived in California, I moved to Texas in 2011, but 25 years before that, I was in California, and I went to Comic-Con every year. And so I remember the year Gene showed up, and he was a guest of honor at Comic-Con, but nobody knew who he was. That's how fast things move. And so I found him at his booth, and nobody around, and I had my stack of Tomb of Dracula with me, maybe 25 copies.
Oh, wow.
And he sat there and signed every one of them, and we just had this conversation for about an hour.
You know what's funny? One of the last conventions before the pandemic that Marv Wolfman was in town for, that was the same thing that happened. And Bernie Wrightson, by the way. They were at the same convention, and it was 2016. They were the last time they were in town. So this was the year before Bernie passed away, because he passed away in 2017, and Marv is still with us. Nobody was at their table. And I was like, this is Marv Wolfman, who wrote The Crisis on Infinite Earths and Teen Titans and created Black Cat and wrote Tomb of Dracula. And Bernie Wrightson doesn't have anyone sitting with him. I think Liz was with him. I'm almost positive. I'm in contact with his son, by the way, John, about the documentary, so he's aware I'm doing it. But nobody was in line. I was shocked. And Marv Wolfman, I felt so bad for him. I bought a book off his table, and he signed my copy of Tomb of Dracula, Volume 1, the essential Tomb of Dracula, which was the black and white reprints that Marvel did. So, but I was just in shock that nobody was at either one of their tables.
Yeah. Well, I would go to Comic-Con and I would work it hard. I'd come home exhausted Sunday evening.
Oh, tell me about it.
And because I was just gathering, I would take my copies with me because I could drive to San Diego from Santa Barbara.
Oh, jeez.
And so I had my car full of stuff, and I could park under the convention center and go back and forth during the day, gathering stuff as people were having their autograph sessions, and and as new stuff was coming out, there would be people who were introducing their comic books, and small dealers who had one comic book title and the like, and the trading cards.
Yeah.
I have 23 albums of
my God.
trading cards.
I have tons of albums of trading cards with mostly Vampirella in it, but I also have the entire I want to say it's called Sex and Blood or something like that. It's all these black and white girl erotic vampire trading cards by Dom Peresi.
Oh, okay.
I have those all signed by him because I got to know him, and he came on the show for an interview, the same one you're on, and he said, if you have anything you want me to sign, mail it to me in Connecticut if I can't get up there to Massachusetts, because he lives in Connecticut. He's kind of stepped away from a lot of the horror stuff. He's been doing a lot of non-horror related stuff. I don't have any reasons why, but before that happened, he signed every one of those trading cards. He asked, how do you want these signed, because they're so small? And I said, you know what, just initial them. So I have the entire set initialed by him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and what's funny is like every trading card was like an interview on the back. It was a question per interview about something in his life. It was really fascinating, and I thought that was really cool. But yeah, please definitely send me a couple pictures of your massive vampire collection. I would love to see it, or you should do like a YouTube tour video. I'm sure everyone would love to see that one day. But we're almost out of time. What are you currently working on right now?
I am working on a book on the spread of Dracula around the world.
Okay.
I have been. I own 1,000 copies of Dracula.
Wow! Seriously, I own 6.
Seriously. And they go back to the first edition.
Oh my God! Of course, you would have a first edition. Yes.
And but I've been collecting them in all the different languages.
Oh, that makes sense.
Trying to go after the first edition in Spanish, the first edition in Chinese. I finally tracked down a first edition Chinese. The only copy we know about is in Hong Kong, in the Chinese University of Hong Kong Library. I've got a first edition Japanese. I'm going to Korea this fall. I'm looking for first edition Korean.
That's incredible.
But I put together the story of how Dracula got translated out of English into other languages, in Hungarian and Swedish and Icelandic, and then in Greek, and then into the other languages of the world. The real horror point is India, where it gets translated into the 16 languages in India, and no one's working on that. So
oh wow!
There's, except for Bengali, there's not a lot of information, and so that's one of the things that I'm working on. Then John Edgar Browning and I are working on a book, a coffee table book on the covers of Dracula, and he's been here. We've been making pictures of the covers of all the different Draculas, and we can't put 1,000 in, but we can put 500 in.
That's amazing.
it actually is a fun project, and all the different ways that Dracula has been represented, and all the different books around over time, over the last 125 years, and then over the around the world. Uh, so it's those are the two things that are entertaining me in my retirement years.
That's fantastic. Well, keep us up to date on that entire journey. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I've been a longtime fan of yours of all these books. And keep up the fantastic work.
All righty. Take care.